皆さんこんにちは。私はニックと申します。Nix 英会話へようこそ。Hello everyone, my name is Nick. Welcome to my channel, Nix 英会話. I've been living in Japan for about 10 years, and I have over 10 years of experience teaching English, both in Japan and in other countries. This is my first video, so I want to try to teach a topic that I feel pretty comfortable with. Sometimes I'll use Japanese, mostly I will use English, but I will use subtitles, so please use the subtitles if you need them. If you have questions or comments or suggestions for other videos in the future, please let me know. Write a comment down below. では始めましょう. Here's a very easy word, and I want to talk about the pronunciation of this word. Can you tell me what this is? Of course, this word is apple, but have you ever thought, why is it pronounced apple? Why isn't it not apple or apple or appley or appley for that matter? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. Because look at this word. This is a different word. Ape. It's not app, it's ape. But this word was apple, not apple. What's going on here? You might be thinking,
マジで英語は適当すぎるんだよね。もう無理。もう諦めます。
まあわかる。結構適当なことが多いと認めましたが、本当はこの場合は役に立つのルールがあると思いますので、100% カバーしないのルールなんですけど、割と使えると思います。The first step will be talking about individual sounds in English. There are two types of basic sounds in English. You have consonants and vowels. Vowels are usually represented by the letters A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y, but don't worry about that too much. And consonants are going to be pretty much every other letter. R, S, T, P, K, G, Z, and so on. Vowels are made by your mouth and your voice. And your mouth doesn't have any special parts moving to make the sound. It's just your voice and the shape of your mouth. A, E, U, and so on. But for consonants, usually it's different parts of your mouth that will make vibrations and change the sound. Your teeth, your tongue, your lips, maybe even in some languages, parts of your throat. Now for vowels, there are two main kinds of vowel sounds. Long sounds and short vowel sounds. First, let's look at the long vowel sounds. These are pretty easy, and it's actually really not that hard to remember, I think. If you can sing the ABC song, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, good job, I know you could. Then you will know how to pronounce the long sound for that vowel letter, because the long sound is the same as the name of the letter. So tell me, what's this letter? Let's sing the song. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So this letter's name is A. The long pronunciation for this letter is A. Cool, very nice. Let's go to the next one. This letter, what's the name? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So E is the name of the letter. The long vowel sound for this letter is E. Cool, very nice. And the same as the rest. I, O, and U. Be careful here though, I said U, not oo. Typically, if you want to make an oo sound, it's actually going to be written as O-O, not as U, usually. Also, please note that the long sound is usually called long because it tends to have multiple sounds put together to make the sound. So, those are the long sounds. What about the short sounds? Again, let's take a look at the main letters again, A, E, I, O, U, and we'll make them into short sounds. Some of these don't exist in Japanese. Don't worry too much about making them perfect right now. For right now, let's just try to understand that there's a long version and a short version. But the short sound for this letter is A. A. I recommend you make a smile and you can try to push your tongue a little bit forward. A. A. The short sound for this letter, I think, exists in Japanese. E. E. This letter, again, doesn't really exist in Japanese. Short I sound is I. I. And for me, it is between an E and an E. So I, E, E. I, E. Again, don't worry about making it perfect right now. As long as you can try to make the difference, most people will understand. Short O is actually ah, like katakana a, I, U, e, o, not o. O, to be honest, is actually pretty rare in English. It's almost never used. And the last one for short U sound will be a. Cool, so we now know our long sounds and our short sounds. So let's go back a little bit to some of those words we showed you at the beginning. We had apple, which is the short sound, and we had ape, which is a long A, right? So short and long. But again, how do we know? The first rule we'll go over today is the E, making long sounds rule. For this rule, you need three main parts. You need a vowel, consonant, maybe more, and then an E at the end. Sometimes this is in the middle of a word too, but it's that combination. This E is silent. It doesn't get pronounced. This E is just a sign that the previous vowel sound needs to be long. So let's go back to the word ape. Vowel, P, and then the E. Again, the E is silent, so we don't say AP or ape. Instead, this E is just going to tell me that the vowel, in this case A, needs to be pronounced as a long A. So it's A. And remember, the long sound is the same as the name of that letter. So let's look at some more examples of the E making vowels long rule. What's this word? Well, again, same letter that we did with ape. What's this letter? A. That's the name of the letter. So the pronunciation will be the same as the name of that letter. So A. T will be tep, 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 and the E is silent. So eight. Eight. It's not at. Another one. A boy's name. E is the name of the letter, so the long sound will be E because this E tells us it's long. Pete. Pete. Or how about this letter? This is the letter I, so we'll pronounce it as I. I. Ripe. Ripe. And then this letter, O. Hope. Not hop. And the last one, U. So this word will be mute. 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 Now notice, actually, these are all words. If you get rid of the E, you take it away and say bye-bye E, it's still a word, but we'll use the short sound because the E is not there anymore. 8 without the E becomes at. Pete, the boy's name, without E at the end becomes pet, like a dog or a cat. Ripe without the E becomes rip. Hope without the E becomes hop. And mute without E becomes mutt. This doesn't always work for every word that has an E in it. For example, size, right? I is the name of the letter. Z, size. And if you get rid of the E, sizz is not a word, so it doesn't always work. That's just a coincidence. Getting rid of the E in rope, rop, also is not a word. Let's go to the next part. Double letters. Remember the word apple? There's an E at the end. So it should be apple, don't you think? No, because there's a double P. When you see a double letter inside of a word, that usually will be a hint that the vowel sound needs to be short, not long. いや、だけど、もしと、なんか複数の文字はなんかダブルしなくてもと短いの方を使うべきと思ってるんじゃないですか？もう十分に明確じゃないで、わざわざ何が必要ですか？ We can talk about the reasons why in maybe a later video, but for today, I'll try to keep it simple. I'm sure you've noticed that some other grammar will make you add special letters to the end of a word. For example, when you make something past tense, usually you'll add ed at the end. Or if you want to compare some items, usually you'll add er for some words. Here's the cool part. If you add er or ed or something at the end of a word and you don't know, did the original word have an e or is that e part of the ed er combination? I don't know. You're right, you don't know. Unless there's a double letter. The double letter can be a hint as to whether or not the original word had an E or not. It's super helpful. So let's take a simple word again, big, which only has one G. And we know that it's a short I because there's no E at the end. B-I-G becomes big. Cool. But if you want to say a comparative version, bigger, notice how that word changed now. We have two G's now. Why is there two G's? Because does the E from bigger, is that part of the original word or not? So the double G tells you, ignore this E. The vowel needs to stay short. This rule takes priority over the E rule. Let's take a look at another example. This word, dine. We got the E at the end, so the I is going to be a long I. Dine means to eat. And in some trains, you have the place where you can eat, or kind of like a 1950s style restaurant is called a diner. Notice that it's not dinner, which means like yushoku, right? Dinner is with two N's, whereas diner only has one N. Because the E then we know will make sure the I becomes a long sound. Here's one more small kind of exception you need to know. The letters CK is actually functioning as a double letter. We don't use double C's or double K's. Double C's might be more like an Italian-based thing, like Gucci or something like that. So if you see this word, thick, you will know that the pronunciation is a short I because CK and thicker will also tell you that the I needs to be short. The E doesn't change the sound for this vowel. いや、ニキちょっと待ってね。でも今も絶対に例外があると思ってるんですけどね。はい、例外いつもあるんですけどね。確かに。例えばこの単語とか、これは comb じゃないでしょ。これは come というがあるんだけど、love じゃないでしょ。なんで love じゃないんですか？確かにいつもこういう例外があるんだと思いますが、このルールを知らないの状況に比べて、なんとなく知らない単語の発音とか読み方がゲスができるようになるんじゃないかと思います。なるほどね。なんとなくちょっと使えると思うんだけど、例えばこの単語はmessage。確かにその E のところが、short E 使うんだけど、 最後の AGE、なんでメッセージと言わないの？メッセージと言うんでしょ？よく気づいたんだよね。はい、そうです。It's true. These are kind of some weird words. Let's talk about them next time. I love this kind of stuff. It's really interesting for me. I hope this kind of information is useful for you too. ご視聴ありがとうございました。もしこの情報が役に立ったと思いましたら、ぜひ他の人にも共有してください。もしコメントとか他のアイディアがあれば、ぜひコメントのところでも何かと投稿してください。今日もありがとうございました。また今度。See you later.